guys, I'm Bourke, and I am going to do a quick tutorial on I'm Alive by myself and Rob Vegas. We're just going to take you quickly through all the stuff that we do in terms of creating the project, how we kind of flesh it out, and just run over a few kind of key points that we think might help you guys if you're looking on how we wrote the song. So without further ado, let's get into it. Now I've just loaded up a project file here in Logic. We use Logic 9.1 for all of our production at the moment, considering moving to Ableton because Ableton's actually pretty amazing. And we also use Fruity Loops as well for a lot of our vocal editing. That's kind of Rob's domain. He does a lot of the vocal processing and whatnot later on, once we've kind of come together with the track. So yeah, just to start quickly, how we kind of construct a song is, I like to always start with a melody. What I'll do is I'll come up with, you can see here, this is the entire project file, basically everything from the kicks, percussion I generally group at the top. So I got the claps, closed hi-hats, open hi-hats, the toms here, some reverse claps and rides and whatnot, and then just kind of like structure it from there. So I like to kind of make everything the same kind of layout so I know where everything kind of is sitting. So yeah, what I generally do when I start a track, like I'm Alive, well, with Rob, we kind of generally start with an instrumental or a vocal or something with a bit of a kind of an idea there, and kind of come up with a concept that we can branch off on. So the first thing that Rob came up with was actually the vocal, and we kind of grew it from there and came up with a big room kind of melody to go along with it. So. That's the melody from I'm Alive, if you haven't heard it yet. We came up with a pretty decent kind of melody there and then went from there in terms of building the rest of the track. So once you've got the melody, for me anyways, generally I'll go forward and start working on the percussion and the bass line and just kind of get the basics going. So once I've got a melody in a track, I start building from there by starting to put together the percussion. I'll get a good kick that I like, something nice and chunky, and then I'll do all the bussing and stuff that you kind of need to do. One of the most important things that I've done in my production, and it's a trick that I've used forever now, is I generally have a silent kick to use as a sidechain signal. So what I do is I'll bus the sidechain kick, which you can't hear in the track, bus it to bus 1, which is as simple as going into the output of that channel, going to bus 1, sending it there, and then just simply turning off the output. So no output selected. And then for this, the great thing is I could have a bass line. Ooh, it's got a bit of a digital click. And I just put a simple C1 compressor on it. This is part of the Waves bundle. And put the sidechain, bus 1. And it's really that easy. So that's the first thing that I do, and trying to get the kick to kind of punch through the mix, make sure that it doesn't mess around with any of the other instruments. And I'll generally put that not only on the bass line, but I'll put it quite quietly. I'll put it on a lot of the main synths. I'll put it on percussion. I'll put it on the hi-hats. I'll put it on the effects, the white noise sweeps, the build-up rises, anything in there that I feel like could take away from the intelligibility of the kick. Which is really important. So you want to make sure that your kick is coming through in the mix. So once I've done that, generally, I'll get my percussion together and get something that kind of sounds like this. Minus the bass, one moment. Really, really basic, really. Just got a little bit of a closed hi-hat there that just gives it a bit of shuffle. Got the claps and stuff there. Very little processing really. Just kind of cutting off around 130 hertz. I generally try to cut off around 150, but it's really based around the key of the song that you're in, because that'll affect what frequencies that you need to cut from. And go from there. So we've got a melody. I've got a good loop. So generally I'll have this in a track by then. I'll have all these elements a melody, bass line, and my percussion. And I can flesh it out from there. So we were lucky to have Rob's great vocal to work with and kind of structure this track, because he already had a great idea of what he wanted. And we just kind of built on it, where I fleshed out, an intro for the radio mix, where it's just simply those chords, kick, great intro to the track, just gives it a lot of energy straight from the get-go. And then it comes in with Rob's vocal, and he kind of carries it for the first breakdown. And then I just kind of flesh out ideas from there. So, put in my white noise sweeps, my snare rolls, my effects, and all that good stuff, automation on the synths, and can kind of work from there. So to show you kind of a bit more about the automation in the track, I hope I'm not going too fast. I mean, you're more than welcome to comment on this. For the automation in the track, we kept it pretty simple here, but what we did is we just kind of ran it on most of the main synths, especially that kind of trance, I call it the Trance Tinkle. And that's the one that I kind of wanted to make sure moved a lot in the track. So, you might hear it a little bit more plucky there, and then it kind of progresses into a very subdued kind of synth. So the good thing is with automation, if you don't use automation in your production, definitely get into it, man. This is what makes dance music what it is today. So you want to be able to automate, which is basically like a way of drawing in, changing the parameter on, say, your filter or your release on a synth or anything you can really control. A lot of my build-ups, you can see here, I've got a bus going. And what I've done here is I've actually grabbed most of the main synths that I'll carry in the track. So, that Trance Tinkle and the other kind of big room synths. I bus them all simply by selecting the channel, going to the bus, and assigning it to a bus channel. So you can see here, I do use quite a bit of busing in every track. What I did is I grouped a whole bunch of the main chords or the main synths in the track onto bus 7. Added a lot of effects here. So I've got an Effectrix, I've got one knob filter, which is a great kind of analog sounding filter, and a bit of reverb and compression. So what you get is you get this great effect when you do a build up on a track, where you can actually go through it. Wait, let me find it here. And start playing around with some of the filters in collection with reverb and delays and stuff like that. So you can get a really cool sound if you do it right. And what I've done there is I've just simply risen that low pass filter to give the drop so much more bass, because if you pull that out, you get a great sound. I've got to be honest, I thought I had a lot more going through that, but so that's how I generally structure a track in terms of the layout of synths and whatnot, which is really important. Automation really makes the track breathe and really come alive. Ironically, that's the track title. Trying to think what else I can kind of go over with this track. I guess one thing that I really do use a lot of is busing. As you saw before, I've got a lot of bus channels on my mixer. And what I use those for generally is if I have a certain effect that I want on the whole track or on a group of instruments or a group of effects, I'll bus them all together. So you can see here on on bus 10, I've actually got a very high, like a very cut-off filter there on the high pass, just cutting off everything below 250 hertz, 2,500 hertz, so that these sweeps and rises and white noise sweeps and stuff like that won't affect the mix, and they actually just sit there in the high frequency range. So that's always a great trick as well to kind of do for your sweeps and stuff like that. Obviously you can put other sweeps in there, other build-ups that don't have such a high cutoff, and that gives it a lot more of effect. But this is something that I've always done just to kind of make it not compete with the other synths, not compete with anything else in the bass frequency. And I also sidechain it as well. So here's just a simple compressor from Logic, and I've put this on top of all the white noise sweeps and obviously sidechained it. So again, I've got that silent kick going onto bus 1, and I've got this compressor sitting on all my white noise synths and sweeps and whatnot. and I've just sidechained it to bus 1. So it's got a very simple sidechain compressor sitting on all the white noise, which again helps the kick come through the mix. Unfortunately, I don't have too much to show you in terms of the vocal takes, which I'm sure is something that a lot of you would like to know more about. Now, me and Rob are going to hopefully sit down and record some tutorials on how we record, what our recording process is. We've just actually been recording in the studio, and we've got some footage of that. So hopefully over the next couple of weeks, we can put together something for you guys. But basically, we recorded this really easily at home, which I wouldn't really advise unless you've kind of got some good, if you can deaden the room so you've got no reverb or kind of like flutter in your room, or like resonating frequencies or whatever. But we did it and it sounded great, and we just kind of went from there. So I'll just quickly play you the vocal. I'm sure if you know the track already, you'll be familiar with this.
I can breathe again, I can see again, I can feel how it feels to be free again. I can dream again, I believe again. I see angels looking down in astonishment, and my heart is beating, 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 beating.
So that's a bit of a vocal from I'm Alive. That's Rob Vegas on the vocal. And what we did is we just kind of did, you can hear it's really wet. We've got a lot of effects kind of running on the mix. So on each channel, I actually didn't do a lot of processing, so there's not a lot of compression or anything like that, because Rob had already done it in Fruity Loops, done a lot of the work and processing and getting those cool effects and that tape stop and the stutters and cool stuff like that. So he actually did a lot of that in Fruity Loops, which is a great DAW for, it's actually a great DAW all stop, like full stop. I actually really rate it. But what I did do is I've just put all the vocals through another bus again. Like I said, love my busing, and just put some effects on this, and I'm going to show you a lot of them now, just very, very quickly. And don't judge me on the way that I've laid this out, because in all honesty, I just did what sounded right and didn't really care about the kind of the signal flow and whatnot. But yeah, I basically put on a vocal ride, kind of a compressor limiter, I'd say, just to boost up those volumes so that the entire vocal sounded at the same level. So that was the first thing we did. This is, again, basically all of this is from the Waves bundle pack. It's a great, if you want to spend a decent amount of money to make your production sound amazing, go out and buy the Waves bundle, because it's really, really good. So yeah, we got a limiter, compressor. It's a very basic one, but has a great sound just riding on the vocal. And then here we kind of had what looks like, it's like a special kind of channel that you can use for compression and EQing. It's kind of like a multi-band compressor, sorry. The next thing that we did is just simply some basic EQ on the vocal. So I popped it up at 2000 hertz, where the male vocals generally will be the most prominent, and just cut it where there was that sibilance coming through, that kind of sound that you get from vocals. So not a lot of EQing, because Rob had done a lot of work on the vocal to make it sound really good. After that, I just started doing some of those wet sounds, and I really wanted to bring those up in the mix. So that was just simply reverb, which is here, great reverb plugin, and yeah, some stereo delay, which I just noticed isn't actually ping-ponging. So that's not good. And then lastly on the mix, I used a vocal rider. Now this is a really cool tool. If you want to make sure that the vocal sits on top of your track, simply what you do is I don't know if it's gonna be simple, but what you do is you bus something that's competing with the vocal. So let's say your vocal isn't sitting right in your mix because your synths seem to be fighting for that space. What you can do is you can bus your synths on a separate channel. So I bus them to bus 7, and I sidechained the vocal using this thing called the vocal rider. Now what that'll do is whenever it hears the signal that you've thrown through that bus, it'll actually push up the volume so that it sits a little bit higher, a little bit louder than that sound that's trying to compete for that space. So it's a really cool tool if you're wanting to make your vocals step up and kind of just sound a little bit louder, but not consistently louder, So it only pushes up the volume when it has something else competing for that space. So that's a great tool, and I put that on at the very end, so you got all those wet kind of noises, the reverb, the delay, kind of coming through as well. All right, so that is I'm Alive. I don't know if I've done a great job in demonstrating how we wrote it, but basically to sum up, yeah, we just started with a melody, started with a simple 8-bar loop, and I put in the percussion, kicks, claps, hi-hats, rides, all that good stuff. Percussion, you know, that nice tom that we have going through the track. I'll see if I can play that for you. How simple is that? And we just had that kind of riding over it. Once we had an 8-bar, we just started fleshing it out. So that was the tutorial for I'm Alive. If you have any questions, feel free to let us know, or subscribe to our channel, and we'll definitely make sure that we bring more material to you guys as we keep producing The Road Less Traveled. We've got 3 more great tracks that we're bringing to you fairly soon, and even more after that. So keep subscribing to our channel, give the video a like, and yeah, if you've got any questions, just feel free to flick us a message. Cheers, guys.